welcome to a rainy day in Massachusetts. And what's perfect to do on a rainy day?
Cook.
Cook, or in this case, pickles. Pickling.
Jarring. Today we'll do jarring.
Jarring and pickling, and with the cucumbers from Dwayne's Hydroponic greenhouse.
Yep.
So.
Oh, actually, I have one to show.
Go get one. Bring it over.
I'll show you what we came out of the greenhouse.
Perfect. Let me tell you a little about what you're going to need to use in order to make delicious pickles. I'm going to make two different kinds of pickles today. Both will use the same brining base, and then it'll be different because we're going to add a few features to make Sweet Heat Pickles, which is going to be a combination of bread and butter and some hot spice from Portuguese peppers that we grew and pickled from our yard. And the base
a nice
will
medium-sized
will just be bread and butter.
Yeah, so bread and butter, some sweet heat, and lots of these.
That's it. So let's show you what we have out here and what we're going to use. This is pretty much all you'll need. First of all, you're going to need vinegar. This is a all-purpose vinegar, and it's probably around, what, 6?
I think this is the higher acidity, the 6%.
6%.
Normal vinegar is 5%.
So you're going to use vinegar. Of course, we're going to use water. We're going to use sugar. We're going to use coarse ground kosher sea salt, minced garlic. We will use 1 chopped slivered onion. We will also use a mix of, these are the Portuguese hot finger peppers that we pickled last year.
Red peppers, yeah, those were grown in the garden as well. And
dill, fresh dill.
Some from the garden and some from the store, I mixed.
For seasonings, you will need mustard seed, you will need celery seed, and you will need ground turmeric. And I'll tell you how much, and I'll give you the exact recipes down below in the description box, so you'll be able to read it. I'm going to explain exactly what you do first. First, before I go over to the stove, let me just tell you how to start this brine. You're going to use equal amounts of vinegar, and for the amount that I'm making, Dwayne measured out 6 cups of vinegar and 6 cups of water. If you're wondering why I was just using what looked like 2 cups of vinegar, it's because this pot already had 4 cups of vinegar in it. So now I've mixed 6 cups of water, 6 cups of vinegar, and I will add 6 cups of granulated sugar to this pot, and then I'll bring you over to the stove. So while I'm doing that, there's never an easy way to get sugar out of these packages either. While I'm doing that, Dwayne, why don't you talk about the type of cucumbers that we're using?
Okay, so this cucumber is actually a hybrid slicing English cucumber. So you know your standard 8-10 inch slicing cucumber and it's combined with an English, so they get longer. They get a few inches longer than this, and we've had bigger ones. Actually, you even chopped up bigger ones than this. So, yeah, they're a great cube. They have very small seeds. As you can see, like nice. I don't know if that'll show up, but there's only a small seed cavity, very small. They're not very bitter. They're nice and smooth and whatnot. They're not crunchy, the seed part of it. Whereas the meat texture of the cucumber is very crisp and works really well with pickles, which we made last year.
Right.
So we used the same cucumber last year as we are right now. And I also grew pickling cucumbers last year, but you know what? I was simplifying things this year, so I just grew one type. So.
And I've just gone, this is my 6th cup. I'm not filling it to the absolute brim of these things. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. It'll be sweet enough, trust me. Now, one of the last things you're going to do, after you put the sugar and the vinegar and the water, this is a 1/2 cup of the coarse ground sea salt. That goes in there. Okay, meet you at the stove. Getting the sugar.
I can still hear and feel the salt.
Yep, the salt will be the holdover. That's why you need to get it warm.
Well, it's that rock salt essentially. The
That's
season.
right.
Yeah, it takes more.
Yep. So this is warming, although it's still not hot, certainly not even close to boiling. The next thing I'm going to do is add the onions. You will want the onions to soften, and it'll take a while, but the onions go in first. You definitely want the onions to soften, but you don't want to overcook or over soften those pickles once I get them in here.
Yeah, you want crisp cucumbers.
The pickles need to stay crisp, the onions need to get soft but with a little bite to it. I call them al dente onions.
Well, let's see
All
if
right.
they al dente nice.
The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add about 3 tablespoons of garlic. This is optional. Not every bread and butter has garlic in it.
And you could also use fresh garlic, but
Our viewers seem to think that we don't like fresh garlic, or that we're kind of lazy and prefer to buy the minced. And yeah, you're right. I don't like to have to peel garlic and smash it and slice it. I mean, it's great, but I just find this so much more strong and bold.
I'm the chopper.
Yeah.
I'm the prepper. I have no problem doing it, but I honestly love the flavor of that jarred garlic.
And I don't think you ever had it before we met.
Oh
had you?
no. I used to buy the exact same
Oh,
thing, so I'm
perfect.
very used to using it. Matter of fact, I rarely use fresh garlic.
We always have it at home, just like fresh
We
ginger.
have fresh garlic in the fridge right now.
We do. We also
But-
use fresh ginger for a lot of our cooking. If you've watched some of the videos with the Asian hot pot, and you know.
Well, you can drop fresh garlic into those things.
Okay, so let's summarize here. I have now added the onions. That was 1 whole onion that was cut into slivers.
Rings and then
Rings, and then cut
Quartered.
again, quartered and cut into slivers.
Yep.
And I've now mixed the onion in with the batch, and I've added 3 tablespoons of minced garlic. You can add more if you want very garlicky. I don't like the bread and butters to be over garlicky, so 3 in all of this liquid is about right for a hint.
But the garlic does work well in the sweet heat.
Yes, it does. Next, I'm going to add, and again, this is just warming, and the liquid is actually getting more and more clear in terms of the salt and the sugar completely dissolving in the brine. Next up are the mustard seed. Again, this is going to be at least 1 tablespoon, maybe a little bit more. Let me shake it out.
1 tablespoon plus spillover.
And maybe another tablespoon, because this to me makes the bread and butter. So let's just call it a tablespoon and a half of mustard seed. Next, you're going to use the same amount of celery seed. And celery seed, of course, comes out like a fine talcum powder compared to the mustard seed.
Yeah, much smaller seeds.
Again, I'm adding about 1 and about 1/3.
I like celery seed in a lot of things.
Yeah,
You know what? I love it on nachos.
a Chicago dog.
Yeah.
So now ground turmeric. This stuff is way more powerful. I'm going to add half of a teaspoon with spillover. But half of a teaspoon.
Yeah, you're already half a teaspoon of spill.
Oh God. Maybe a little
A
more.
little bit hit the spoon.
Okay. So here's the way I do it. The same amount of the celery seed, the same amount of the mustard seed, and then about 25% of what you did with these 2 will be the turmeric. All right, let's give this a stir. Here's what it's starting to look like in the pot.
So this is going to render all these little flavors into this vinegary, watery solution, right?
Vinegary, watery, salty, sweet solution.
Everything's getting in there.
That's right. And we haven't added anything else, and there really won't be any other additions until we get
And
to
it
the
is
canning.
a medium-low heat and
That's right.
no boil yet.
That's right. We don't want this to boil. Everyone is looking really good. It is still not boiling, and we did put the onions in here, and remember, I want the onions to get soft, so I will let this come to almost a boil and then turn it off. The pickles will be the second thing that I add after I shut this off, but the onions have already been here a little bit. The onions are starting to soften, but not quite, so we'll see how we do. If I do need to boil it, I will only boil it for a few minutes before shutting it off again. Not boiling yet, just getting warm. The onions, remember you want them to not completely cook, but you want them clear or more clear than they normally would look. And right around now, and before you put those pickles in, and right before you turn it off, before you put the pickles in, you can do a final tasting of this brine. Not talking about chomping on it like a, you know, like a bowl of soup or anything, but you definitely want to get a little of the liquid and taste it. You may want to add more acid. You may want to add more salt. If you like things really sweet, you may need to add a little sugar. But it's all on you. Right at this point, given the amounts and everything that I put in, that is the typical way we would make it. Oh, it's perfect. Wow. It's really good the way it is. But if you like a little more salt and a little more acid, this is when you would add maybe half a cup of vinegar if you wanted it more acidic. Okay, this is just under a boil. Dwayne just tasted an onion, has a little snap to it, but definitely soft or softer, and it was one of the more chunky pieces. You can see the steam. It hasn't boiled yet.
It's hot.
But it's not boiling. Okay, want to hand me some pickles? What you're going to do now is keep watching the pot. It's not boiling, and we're going to add these cucumber slices. Did I just call them pickles? They're not pickles yet. Yeah.
But yes. Yeah, I got the pan.
You got that. All right. So these are all freshly cut. You can notice the thickness varies. I don't like them all the same. Some are thin and some are a little chunkier. It depends on whether or not you want to put it in a sandwich or have it as a side dish. Right? So I make a mix of both. You can see some of the thickness. Still not boiling, which is what we want. Ordinarily, I would sliver the onions real thin because then I don't have to worry so much about the onions not getting soft enough. Okay, so we've done this batch. It's not.
Smaller amount of cucumbers, but hey, whoa, wait a minute, we have more cucumbers.
The bounty of
we have a lot. I wonder if they're gonna fit. So.
Well, if they don't, then you're gonna have a lot of cucumber with your salads this week.
Yes.
I think we'll be able to accommodate all of them.
I think we'll get them.
Let me get these down to the bottom. You do want the pickles to soften, but not get soggy. They need to retain their crunchiness.
Well, you want crisp pickles.
Crispy
No
pickles.
one likes.
Look at how beautiful. Look how beautiful this is.
I like how the skins green up a lot.
You can.
I like that. Working.
Here we go. Look how beautiful the skins green up. I can smell. You see how it's not boiling, but it's definitely warm. Okay, and it's now turned off. Now that all the pickles are in here, make sure you submerge the slices in the warm brine.
I tested a pickle and it's warm, so.
It's warm and it's still crispy.
Still crispy.
And that's how we leave it. In fact, everything is off. This will remain uncovered and cool a bit, and then we'll start the canning process.
Yeah, we have our little funnel, of course, and we're making a dozen jars, a dozen pints this time. And they're on the sheet pan because I use there are several ways you can sterilize your jars. I use the oven process because they go in and they come out dry. You don't have to worry about drying them and putting them on a rack, any of that. People will boil them, people will put them in pressure cookers, there's lots of ways. But when you boil it, that's 212 degrees. I put it in a 210 degree oven for 20 minutes and sterilize. The lids I do differently. The lids I still follow the traditional boil the lids, which I did. I boiled them for half an hour, drying them off, get them nice and dry. So now everything is sterile, dry, ready to go, and we can start loading up our jars.
All right, now we'll get to canning. Like I said, this batch is already finished. It's bread and butter. We can go right ahead and jar this bread and butter. Whatever's left over after I make 6 jars of bread and butter, we will then turn into the sweet heat. So what I do first, and I don't think there's a technique or a right way or a wrong way, is I like to put the pickles in and get as many pickles in the jar by using a slotted spoon. I also like to focus on bringing up some of that onion. And you can see I shake it up. Getting lots of cucumber in here, and it's soft enough so you can see how it's softening and makes it easier to jar. I use a little chopstick trick to kind of go around without damaging my beautiful slices. I can still fit a couple more in there. And that's about it for the pickles. Now, I'll use my ladle to put the brine, and you'll see it's filling from the bottom, and you'll want to go right around, it's still not at the top, and a little more. I'll dig down to get more of the spice. Almost. There you go. We have now jarred the bread and butter, and the only thing left to do is let them cool a little. They are getting cool, and then Dwayne is going to put those lids and make sure they're snapped in, labeled with the date. In about 2 weeks of refrigeration, these should be at full deliciousness, although I think we've been known to eat it way before the 2 weeks. And let me show you how we turn this batch of the bread and butters into what I call sweet heat. The bread and butter pickles that you saw me make. And I'm going to layer this a bit. So I'm going to put some pickles in the jar. There we go. Then I'm going to come and grab the fresh dill, the sliced Portuguese pickled peppers. I have some red pepper flake. And this is actually the pickling brine from these peppers that I've reserved, and I'm going to try adding this to make my sweet heat more flavorful. You can also use pickled jalapenos, and you can also use any other kind of chili pepper. You really can use any pepper you like, but put your pickles in, put your dill in, put a couple of these peppers in, shake a little bit of the crushed in, and then what I'm going to do now is add a smidge of the brine and more pickles. Okay, fine. Button there.
Well, actually, I'm going to add in really quick. So as you can see, I've started to put these lids on. I like to get them nice and tight. I actually tip the jar upside down, and what that does is any heat in there helps to kill any possible bacteria that got in there. And then you put it back right side up and let them cool. And that's it. That's how we do it. All of those lids were sterilized, the jars were cleaned, wiped down before I did any of the actual putting of the lids on after she had put the pickles in place. You really want to make sure you've got nice dry tops, nice and clean, to once again beat any bacteria and get a good seal.
Okay, I layered some pickles and some brine and some peppers, and now I will add a little bit of that pickle juice, kind of top it off. Just topping it off with the flavor. And here is a beautiful, it really does come out beautiful, doesn't it? And now, just to make sure I didn't leave any space occupying
No air in there.
air or anything, I'll use my trusty chopstick. What I really like to do is actually jam the dill down pretty low, because it really will infuse that dilly flavor that everyone loves. And there's the first jar. We're finished. And these jars, Dwayne's hard work, show you how different they each look. This is the sweet heat with the red Portuguese finger pepper, the same briny bread and butter pickle brine in here. So it's basically a bread and butter that you doctor with dill and hot peppers when you're jarring, and put it in layers, and top off with some crushed red pepper. Here is the bread and butter ready to go. We thought we'd have enough for 12 jars, but we really only had enough for 10. We had a lot of extra brine, which you can just toss anywhere, because there's no lard or anything oily or greasy. It's just the sugar water mix with salt. And that's it. So family and friends, you may end up with one of these jars. They'll be ready to eat, and at full peak of its deliciousness after 2 weeks of being in the fridge. The only thing left is to mark them off and put the labels on them, and we're all set.
But I think definitely whoever leaves us the best comment is getting a jar.
That's right, a contest. The
So-
best comment, the most shares, and you get a jar of pickles of your choice. How's that?
You can choose.
That's right.
Thanks,
Hi, folks.
everybody.
Please like and subscribe if you haven't, and we'll be cooking again soon.
See